Have you seen Chuck Norris lately? He's still kicking butt and staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he looks more jacked than ever and seems to have more energy than guys half his age. And it's all thanks to Morning Kick, a revolutionary new daily drink from Roundhouse Provisions that combines ultra-potent greens like spirulina and kale with probiotics, prebiotics, collagen, and even ashwagandha. Just mix with water, stir, and enjoy. Unlike other green drinks out there, this one tastes exactly like strawberry lemonade and has hundreds of 5-star reviews. Go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 for up to 44% off your regular priced order. Plus, every purchase is backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to experience smoother digestion, a boost of energy, and just an overall healthier body, then go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Results can vary.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, Regina's only downtown brewery. Well, there was no last-minute shenanigans around here as we have decided to go forward with this episode. I did not have to offer John a new contract, so I didn't get to change the terms at the last second.
Nope.
Not that we really have any terms. I ask if he wants to record, and John says yes, and he didn't have to sell a car today, so we're good. So, hey!
Although, in fairness, Joel, we are recording a little bit later than planned because my oldest son, Max, almost pulled a CFL's owners on us by just not going the bleep to sleep.
He's on strike from sleep.
Apparently. Took him to the bouncy castles and everything at a play date with his little buddy Ethan. And I thought, tonight's going to be a breeze, Joel. 8 o'clock, Raptors game finishes. I'm like, all right, we're in.
Well, the Raptors almost didn't cooperate either.
Yeah, no, yuck. That was also not good. And I'm like, okay, cruise control. Raps game is over. I'm out in the living room with my youngest. My wife comes and switches me roles from hanging out with the youngest, putting the oldest to bed. And that went on for another hour. So there was nearly an ownership-like renegotiation on the time. But we, at the 11th hour, or at the... trying to think military time, at the 20th hour of the day, here we
are. No, I don't think that's right either. But anyway, I think it might be that in BC right now. I think we're at
right, 2022. And I do math for a living. Wow.
Well, the machines do the math for you. You just hit print.
And even the printer barely cooperates with me.
Well, that's really all printers exist to do now, right? Is just make our lives miserable. Like, the places I worked, the printers are just always seem to be broken, and they're never working.
Yep.
Like, Office Space was very pathetic. It was very, like, they saw into the future when they destroyed the copy machine or the printer in that one part of the movie. That was very, like, foreshadowing our lives at this point, where this machinery that used to be so important to us that isn't really anymore because we can do so much digital now, just exists to make us miserable. That's really all the printer does now.
No, and you're right. And as a person that still needs to get wet ink on paper, you're absolutely correct. If I was given the opportunity and knew I wouldn't be charged for a new printer, you're abso-frickin'-lutely right. That is the closest I've come to dropping an F-bomb in this podcast. That I would take both my printers out into a field while Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster plays and beat it up with a baseball bat.
Yeah, that would... One of your printers, I remember from when you got us our cars, is still like that old school, like...
Yeah. And guess what followed me from Honda to Nissan?
Of course, yeah.
And then I left in Honda, and now everything's done laser in Honda. Ugh.
Yeah, well, they're just trying to make your life miserable. That's all.
I guess so. Much like the CBA drama last night.
Yeah, that was something. I was out last night for a little bit, so I had to do a little catch up on that today. So I wasn't really too up to date on that. When you sent me that text yesterday, I was like, huh? Because I was a little busy with some things. But did eventually catch up. We of course, are going to talk about all the drama that happened on Saturday night in terms of the CBA, and we'll get into kind of a little bit about the new CBA in general, what's expected to be the new CBA, and how it turned out for the players. And it didn't look great at first, but it turned out, I think, pretty well at the end of the day. We're going to get into our wrong take again, as Jon Ryan has signed with the Riders. Last week I said, well, if it hasn't happened yet, surely it's not going to happen. And then 2 days later they signed him. So
if it makes it feel better, I said that we'd missed 2 weeks of training camp last week, and here we are. It's the opening day training camp.
Yeah, we're all used to your takes being horrifically wrong, though.
No, that's fair. That's just a
really, the CBA got done because of you. This is the long play by you the whole time, wasn't it?
That's absolutely right. CFL fans, I'm here for you. There's football because of John Fraser.
And training camp did open today. We were discussing a little bit before we hit record as to why do they still start these things on Sundays. But anyway, a little bit of interesting news out of camp today with Manny Arceneaux showing up and being a little bit more than just a spectator, which could be interesting news for the team and the offense to start the season. But before we get to that, we're going to get into the part of the podcast that never lets us down, the beer. John, what you got?
That's right. My hot takes here are actually usually very good. This one caught my eye the other day, Joel. It is a cerveza style from Rebellion. It was near Cinco de Mayo. I went and picked up some cans, and Lacey, my wife, is not much of a craft beer person. But the 4 cans I had purchased were quickly gone from my mini fridge, so I had to go back and purchase 4 more cans, and I cracked one open tonight on a very nice summery day where I spent most of it outdoors and barbecuing and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, no, it is a summer beer, and for me, it's perfect for people that, again, may not be super into craft beer, into the tastes and things like that. I just want a very simple, straightforward, easy drinking beer, but you still want to support a great local company. I highly recommend picking it up. I think it is going to be my go-to, throw a lime on it, sit on the deck kind of beer when I just want a beer that's fairly basic. I love, and it's a very, very good. When I say fairly basic, I mean basic in a taste profile, but it's clean, it's fresh, refreshing. I imagine it would taste great with lime. I don't have lime, and I refuse to compromise with lime juice.
Fair enough. I've been told, I haven't tried it yet. Apparently, it works really well with clam. If anyone's a beer and clam kind of person, if you go to the Rebellion tap room now, actually they sell you like a beer cocktail with it. It's like, so there's Judd. He used to be one of the owners of the Lancaster and the Capitol here in Regina.
Okay, yeah.
He has branched out on his own and has started a new sort of beverage company, I guess we'll call it. He makes like syrups and sauces and sort of stuff, mostly for the liquor industry. So he's still involved with booze, but now he doesn't have like the massive tax and license burden that he would have had before, which naturally is cool. So he's made like a vegan Caesar mix that they put in the cerveza at Rebellion with all the like Caesar trimmings and all that stuff. It's supposed to be called like a Michelada or something. Apparently it's supposed to be pretty good. So yeah, I've been told, that's a beer that works really well with clam if you're into that. But yeah, easy drinking, just a beer. And yeah, I've had a few myself already. And I can tell you, John, you should be on the lookout. They do have them in 8-packs as well now, too.
Oh, fantastic. So 4 for Lacey and 4 for myself. Got it.
Yes, if you do feel like dividing it that equally.
Usually it goes the other way in my house, so I'm okay with her drinking most of my beer.
All right, and for me, I had a bit of a night last night, so taking it easy with a nice Pile of Bones Session IPA. Just because it should be nice and light tonight. We'll leave it at that.
And I know you're, because again, the number of times you and I text each other, I made this joke at your wedding, the number of times you and I text each other throughout the day is quite high every single day. I love it. It is one of my favorite things about our friendship. But I know when you don't text me back, I'm like, oh, Joel's getting drunk and doing something super fun tonight.
I don't know if it was super fun, but yeah, the Highland Games and Celtic Gathering was in downtown Regina yesterday. Pile of Bones was a major sponsor of that, so I was there hawking beer in the afternoon, and then me and the guys stayed out last night at O'Halloran's and had a few. And I took my first Uber ride home in Regina, so that was I guess something to mark down as something that happened in Regina history. I don't know.
Great success. Dude, I'm like half Scottish. My grandfather immigrated when he was a teenager. I feel like I should be there next year.
You should. It was actually pretty fun, and they got great beer gardens, brought in all local beers to sell there. And yeah, we put out a new beer garden kind of in the action of everything, so you can see some of the stuff going on, because there's like strongman competitions, there's pipe bands, there's dancing, there's like all kinds of stuff going on that's kind of cool to go along with that. So
and damn, I look good in a kilt.
Gotta look good in something, I guess. Ooh. And something that does look good now is the CFL CBA, as it all signs point toward this thing finally getting done after months of uncertainty. And it seemed everything was in the clear, and then it looks like the CFL tried to pull a fast one on the players. And man, catching up on that today. If you don't really know the whole story, head to 3downnation.com right now. John Hodge did a nice write-up on sort of, here's the Coles notes of everything that happened on a wild Saturday night in the CFL. If you happen to be out at O'Hanlon's having a few beers and not sure what was going on in the world of CFL, that was a good spot to kind of catch up on the gist of it. And it just blew my mind. It's like why? I just can't wrap my head around why, out of all and it seemed like around like the American player exemption sort of thing. Like, why? I just can't understand this like at all.
It was almost like it was the shadiest, crappiest, lamest, stupidest negotiating tactic you could ever come up with, and you almost wonder if the owners had this up their sleeve. Or somebody just planned this up and thought this would be a great idea once the players all arrived, to pull a fast one on them and hope that they either said, oh, okay, well, I'm already here at my expense or whatever, or I can't get home because I'd have to pay out of pocket. And then the CFLPA basically whipped them out, put it on the table, and said, we got enough money in the bank to send everybody home. Don't screw us around. So I got to say, good on the CFLPA. I don't know if maybe they knew this was coming, or that they just had a war chest that obviously they didn't need to use because a strike didn't happen. But for basically the CFLPA to whip it out and say, no, you go back to what we agreed to, or we're on strike. And if you read Hodgie's piece, I believe it was either Hodgie's piece or Hodgie on Twitter had shared an internal memo amongst Blue Bomber players that basically said, no, they're going to try to talk to you this morning, make you sign it. Do not show up. We will be outside the stadium. This is happening. Like that's how close we got to a full-blown player strike because of an 11th hour shady move by the CFL. It's a black mark on these negotiations, and I would say it's an absolute Bush League move by a league that, or an owner or whomever, that needs to give their head a shake. Like, that is just like the unbelievable shadiness of the entire thing. I think is maybe being buried in this a little bit. Like, what a crappy move by the CFL.
Yeah, like could you imagine in any other like line of work if some employer tried to do that to someone in negotiations? Like, imagine the storm that would create in terms of like labor laws and like labor courts and everything. It would be like national news. It'd be huge. And of course, CBA negotiations and sports aren't anywhere near important as in anywhere else really in life, but it's still a thing, and it makes the league look really, really bad. And I don't understand why, but they would even try this. Like, you agreed to this already. If you really didn't like whatever they changed, then figure out a way to have not agreed to that in the first place.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, the owners, to me, in this CBA got although there were several major concessions in favor of the players. I mean, the casual observer may see the salary cap barely moving and going, oh wow, the players got their lunch handed to them again. But the owners, to me, kept the league kept significant salary cap increases and kept everything true 100% league revenue or league, the salary cap being tied to league revenue. So those are two major wins that they did get in the CBA for the ownership side. So why would you ever try something like this, which was, by all accounts that you and I have had a look at the memo sent out to all the players, it's a win-win CBA for both sides. Why would you try to pick up an extra win and just poison the waters that much more?
Yeah, and all this really does is build the distrust for 3 years from now. Because you don't forget that the union's not going to forget this, and this is going to come back, and they're going to be like, so, do we have an actual agreement this time, or are you going to be assholes again? Like,
yeah, you're absolutely right, and you made a great point there, Joel. It is only a 3-year deal that also happens to coincide with the end of one of the league's biggest revenue streams, that being the CFL on TSN deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, the memo says they're going to get 20% of future broadcasting deals as per the CBA.
Yeah.
But what happens if that's a real big number and you got a season looming and you remember the shady crap that they tried to pull on you the last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That number could real easily go up on the eve of training camp. No, we don't want 20, we want 30, or nobody's showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame the players for trying.
No.
And I think that's really... So in terms of the whole picture of the CBA and what it's going to look like, I know my eyebrows raised the first two because, yeah, the number, the talk came out that was, 50, the minimum salary is going up to 65, which is better than nothing,
yep.
But it probably still should have gone higher. And the cap's only going up basically $100,000 over the whole 3-year thing. And I was like, oh boy, here we go again. And yeah, and those are the two big things that we always look at first because the money is the most important thing usually in all these negotiations. So you thought, well, if the players couldn't make any gains there, where the heck else could they make gains? And it turns out they basically made gains everywhere else. And to me, the biggest thing, and yet everything that the players got in this great, the expanded healthcare, some of the ratio changes, this and that, and all this stuff is great. But what it really is to me, it's a building stone. It's a platform for future negotiations until the league kind of screwed up a little bit at the end for saying, okay, we can work this out. We have, I think for the first time really ever, the Players Union has sort of something they can build upon now. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people had in their mind, that the players, they needed a big win. They needed to really increase the cap and get this, and this. I'm like, yeah. It would have been nice if they had, if the league saw the value in that and agreed and gave the players a heck of a lot more. Yeah. But no capitalist is going to work that way, so it's not going to happen. It was all about, you set up the platform, you set sort of the formula is there now for the Players Association, if they play it smart over future negotiations, to build upon what this one set. Unlike the other ones, which was basically, here's an extra few bucks and they signed and they moved on, this there actually is new stuff. There's revenue sharing that they can hopefully increase over time. There is more medical that they can hopefully build on over time. Like there's these things that are starting now that can hopefully become more and get to the point where this league needs it to be down the road. And I think it was Drew Edwards who wrote the piece that it was actually, the players need the league to be successful now in order to really get to where they want to be. Which is true, and I think that's good for the players because, everyone's in this together now.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that, Joel. And the other thing, too, that I think a lot of people are glazing over, and maybe it's because I see it often in my line of work, working with credit and finance and things like that, is the fact that at the owner's expense, these players are going to have open work permits so they can stay in Canada.
Oh, that's huge. Stay
and be a part of the community, make additional money doing whatever. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden you saw a whole bunch of popular Saskatchewan Rough Riders popping up at car dealerships around there or doing real estate or insurance sales, right? I mean, it seems like a natural kind of thing. Like,
all the retired players already do it, so.
Well, that's exactly you're as a player, you're able to leverage your popularity to a degree. So combine that with the fact that and again, I've heard a couple different ways that it's going to work. It'll be interesting to see the way that it's actually going to work, but the ratio with the veteran player ratio, there's now an incentive for guys to, guys have the open work permits. They can make some extra cash. They now have incentive to stick with a team. It looks like this extra eligibility will be granted after 3 years with the same team, 4 years in the CFL. Guys will have chances to actually put down roots here. If you can find even a part-time job that over the other 6 months of the season pays you, an extra $30,000. All of a sudden, your minimum salary in the CFL starting next season, you'll make $95,000 in a year.
Yeah.
Between a part-time job and a full-time job, and all your guys that are above that, you have an opportunity that you don't have to send that money back home necessarily.
No, you have, and that's something I looked up, kind of saw some people talking about today, made a lot of sense, is now a guy who maybe, the younger guys, especially who are coming up from the States, who maybe don't really have family roots yet, they can stay up here, make their, this year, say, $65K, work something in the offseason, make another, say, maybe, let's be a little more realistic, maybe make about $10K in the offseason, so you make $75 for the year pre-tax, and you're not going back home and converting it, losing it about half of it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Joel. You can stay everything. You can get paid in Canadian dollars and pay your expenses in Canadian dollars. I think the only thing with the open work permits, I wouldn't be surprised to see, and good on them if a couple big-time corporate partners of the teams, throw a little couple jobs at these guys, maybe overpay a little bit to keep them in the city, and a couple of appearance fees for speaking and stuff like that. But to me, it's I think
there's an opportunity for a loophole there that the league will probably have to keep an eye on for future negotiations, because it is. Sure. I mean, it's one thing. I think it's one thing for it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with a player going to work for someone who's a major sponsor, but if it's clearly something that's basically been written into the contract, that shouldn't be allowed. Like, there shouldn't be all of a sudden, oh look, Kyron Moore is now working for Mosaic and he's making, $100K there. Like,
you're absolutely right on that one, Joel. It does look like you summarized it perfectly by saying it is the building blocks. There is the words revenue sharing in the deal, the medical things that the players want covered again, and basically incentivizing guys to say, okay, you now have the opportunity to make Canada your home and make an honest go of it, and we're going to protect some of our veteran guys by giving them some eligibility stuff. Yeah. So maybe you don't see that glut of guys being cut like we have seen here on the opening day of training camp.
Oh, I think that's always going to happen, but I think in this case especially it happened because I think some teams were expecting maybe a bit of a bigger bump in the cap and got caught.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Oh, absolutely. That's 110% when you saw some of these starters being cut from last year, and kind of luxury spots because you might be doing something with the ratio, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're gone. Oh, the ratio didn't change. Oh, the cap barely changed. Well then, yeah, some guys giving their walking papers. You could field a decent team with the guys that are out there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and the other big news, at least in terms of the world of Saskatchewan football, was another signing this week, and that was the signing of punter Jon Ryan. And that got the province talking for obvious reasons. He is one of Saskatchewan's favorite football players, considering his success in the NFL and all that. Yeah. And it had people talking, and it was a big story, and it was probably, as John was asked at his presser, no offense to the position, but this kind of hoopla isn't usually reserved for the punter.
Yeah.
But, that's the case of Jon Ryan, given his roots, high school here, university here, everything but professional here, basically, and now he gets to do that. And I have a piece filed for 3 Down Nation. I filed it like a week ago after the signing basically broke. And I know a lot of people are really excited about this, and I get why. He's a local guy, and I get that the team has kind of, ripped that soul out a little bit over the last few years, where there hasn't been those kind of marquee guys, where you had faces and you used to have, and I'm not saying they should have remained, but, Darian Durant and Weston Dressler and John Chick and these guys who, were basically the face of the franchise for a certain era. And I think you could argue over the last few years that really the face of the franchise is Chris Jones, and that's about it. Really,
right?
There wasn't the guys that there wasn't those frontline guys, and so maybe they need to get a few of those names back in place and rebuild that a little bit. And I get all that, and I get the marketing opportunities here, and I get the feel-good story, and all that. Hometown hero comes home to kick football, and blah 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 blah. But I'm not from here, so maybe that's why I don't have this attachment. I've never been a fan of the team. I don't really care. So I look at it purely from a football ops perspective, and I just can't wrap my head around really why this was done at the end of the day. And this is meant as no disrespect whatsoever to Jon Ryan, who I will agree in every sort of measurable way is a better punter than Josh Bartel.
Yeah.
But is it really going to help them win more football games? I would argue no. it might, he might add a few yards. They might ask him to do a little bit more than they asked out of Josh, sure. But really, is it really going to help them win more football games? I don't think so. All they did was add salary for basically no reason is pretty much how I see it. They didn't really get, they didn't make the team demonstrably better. They didn't flip the ratio in the spot. I could see if there was, they had an American, and now it's like, okay, we got to go, you need help in our Canadian ratio, so you'll bring in Jon Ryan to flip the ratio, but Josh Bartel was still counted as a national thanks to the Josh Bartel rule. So he was fine. And so really, all you did is, I don't know how much Josh made last year, or he was set to make this year, but yeah, you maybe only added, say, $30,000 to the cap for basically no reason, because as Justin Dunk reported that Jon Ryan's now the highest paid punter in the CFL, making about $100,000.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay. I mean, I'm not so mad about it that, I wrote a piece for it. I disagree with the move, but I'm at the end of the day, okay, it's not going to make them demonstrably worse either, so whatever. It's just a punter. I'm not really going to get that upset about it, but
yeah,
it just all around, as a pure football decision, it didn't seem like it was a move that had to be made. And that's just where I fall on it.
And now, you're right. It was not a move that had to be made, but if you're able to add, to me, from a marketing and everything standpoint, if you're able to add a guy who again, measurably is better than the other guy, and not really add, I mean, we're talking about half of a minimum player salary to the cap. Again, the Riders, we all agree they probably have some money to play with, especially after the home run that was the Solomon Elamimian deal. Falling in like what they're paying for him is absolutely unbelievably low in comparison. Of course.
Well, maybe Mosaic's giving him a job now.
Maybe they knew that was coming. That's right. All of a sudden, marketing intern Solomon Elamimian. I don't mind the move. I think it's done for the right reason on a lot of for a lot of people. The Riders are doing it because, again, measurably it's a slight upgrade, but it does have a slightly higher salary cap. You hit the nail on the head, Joel, with saying that there hasn't been a lot of, even heading into the season, there hasn't been a lot of very marketable, recognizable guys, and I think that's been missing. And then that's, again, I'm like you. You and I are actually both from Ontario, different regions of the province, but
I mean, you're essentially from the Manitoba part, so.
Well, basically, yeah. I always joke I'm half Manitoban, but to me, that is one thing you hear in Coffee Shop Row, and I think of somebody like my father-in-law. He's been a Riders fan his entire year, or his entire life, pardon me. And he bought a new jersey. And he said to me, he's like, I for the first time in a while, I don't know who I would get on my jersey.
Jorgen Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think that's what I said. I said former Hilltop Jorgen Hughes. And I threw some other names out at him, but I think Jon Ryan gives you a guy, as you said, he's recognizable. People know who he is. He's a good marketing play, and obviously the Riders have some cap room. They're not up against it. It's not costing them one of their guys to re-sign. It's just it's a luxury ad that the team can afford and fills an off-field niche for the team, and as you said, doesn't make it worse. And I think, unlike maybe some other guys that have come up from the NFL to the CFL, he's doing it for the right reasons.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, he earned a big couple points in my books this morning when he was the first guy on the field for training camp today. This is a guy that was, in and out of the NFL for the past couple of years that can kick the hell out of a football, and we all know that. And, I think to me, even to some of the leadership group, and I'm not saying Josh Bartel wouldn't have been one of the first guys out there, but it's notable when a guy making that kind of coin is one of the first guys out there kicking footballs to set a good example for some of the younger guys on this team. So I'm with you. It wasn't a necessary move, but I don't hate it. I don't mind it. I see why they did it. It's a luxury move by a team that can afford it going into this season.
I guess that's fair. And like I said, I'm not overly upset about it because, again, we're talking about the punter at the end of the day. And it's not really, I mean, it's going to be what it is and they'll be fine either way. It was just interesting to me, though, because the first day of rookie camp, Marie McCormick finally got to ask the question to Craig Dickinson about this, because it probably would have ultimately come down to him of whether they made the change or not, because he's still the special teams coordinator. That's his role. That's what he knows. So I'm sure Jeremy O'Day took a lot of input from Craig Dickinson on this one as well, about what he thought, why they made the move. And then he starts talking about Josh Bartel not getting downfield well enough, and it's something they wanted him to be better at this year. And then, they felt if he was in better position and better, tackling at times, that they wouldn't have given up the returns they did last year. And I was like, what? We're making a change at punter over tackling? Really?
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
We're going to go down that road. Okay.
like you're right. Of all the roads to go down, you'd think, Super Bowl experience, veteran experience, played in both leagues, overall great human being. But you're right. To say that it had to do with tackling, come on, guys, get your story a little bit more straight here.
And I actually believe Craig Dickinson. I think it's a weird reason, and I don't know if it's really one that you should be deciding on who your punter is, but Craig Dickinson is such a football nerd and such a special teams guy that I could see that being a big reason why they would want to make the change. I honestly don't know if Jon Ryan is still a good tackler at age 37, but if they feel there's an upgrade there, then okay, I guess. It was just, it caught me so off guard. I was like, whoa. I was texting Murray after too. He's like, yeah. He's like, I did not expect that answer. And it was like, yeah, it was fascinating. It's fascinating to actually get insight into his mind as to why they made this change. I don't necessarily agree, but hey, he was giving what I think was an honest answer on what he thought the reason why the change was made, in his mind at least, as a special teams coordinator. So I guess you can't fault him for it, but it was just a really weird answer.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I have now come around to your way of thinking. An answer that oddball has to come from a place of honesty.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to say one of the other lines that I gave. So,
veteran leadership and blah 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. He's enough of a football nerd. I've had some chances to speak with him briefly. Yeah, I get it. I guess his tackling is better.
Maybe, which is, I don't know. And I guess you have other options. You can do a lot more trick plays with him. You could line him up at receiver still if you probably wanted to. He might be the best Canadian receiver on the team right now. Other than the draft picks, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how McKinnis and company work out. But if they didn't get those draft picks signed, you could have made an argument that John might have been pretty good at that Zed receiver spot too.
It's true. Guy's got hands for a punter,
and he's big and he's built. So
true. Also, that I always forget about that. Yeah, I just think of whenever I think punter, even with watching Jon Ryan for all these years in and out of both leagues, I just get this flashback to the old single bar Bobby Cameron, 46 years old, tiny human being, looked like somebody's dad on the team. I can't grasp my head around the fact that, oh yeah, no, he's a grown-ass man who will hurt you when he hits you.
Yeah, absolutely. He probably won't have to play receiver, though, because the depth overall looks like it's getting a little better there. As we mentioned earlier, training camp opened today, and there was a bit of a surprise there today. And Manny Arceneaux is there. Not that he was there. I'm sure he would have been there in some capacity, at least, taking it in and, doing meetings and all that sort of stuff. But he actually took to the field. And he wasn't just, one run. He took to the field by all accounts. And that's an interesting twist that I don't think a lot of us expected so early on, because a lot of the talk was that Arceneaux probably wasn't going to be ready until the midpoint of the season at some point. Now, he still might not start the season. We don't know. Maybe he's just testing things. We'll see how today goes, kind of thing. But the fact that he's even out there on day one of training camp, whether he opens the season or not, has to be a pretty optimistic sign for him that he's not going to miss maybe as much time as we thought, if any at all. No,
and I'm with you. When you can see a guy back on the field just months after an ACL injury like he had, kudos on him. He is obviously some sort of superhuman or mutant or something that he's able to come back that quickly. So you're right, Joel. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with the nature of knee injuries, if maybe we don't see him till, even if he participates in all of training camp. I doubt we see him in the preseason games. Might not see him for a couple weeks into the season. But yeah, no, it was to the point I had completely forgotten about signing Arceneaux this offseason. I had checked him out, thought to myself, oh yeah, no, you'll see him after. And you know how your brain does that sometimes?
Yep.
My brain had just kind of gone, Oh yeah, he'll be a non-factor. Until,
I mean, your brain forgets about a lot of things, so.
That's true. Many concussions and too much alcohol. Yeah, that. So, anyway, Manny being out. Quick reminder: hey, he's here. He's the thing. He could be good. Hopefully, he's healthy enough to come back earlier in the season. Indications are by him being out here in Saskatoon on that Griffith Stadium turf, which is not the world's most luxurious turf by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
That's a good sign. It's a very good sign for many things on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it couldn't come at a better time for a team that, by all accounts, we believe still needs some help on offense. And I wrote the preview piece for 3 Down Nation for training camp, and we talked about it a little bit last week, where the only real question coming into training camp this year was, what are they going to do on offense? And by adding a guy like Manny Arceneaux, whether he's his usual self or he's 75% of what he used to be, still makes him a threat on the field to do something. I don't think anyone is expecting Manny Arceneaux to come in here and put up 1,100 yards or anything like that this year, but he is still, he's still an option on the field, and he's still someone that defenses are going to have to take seriously, because if they don't, even if he's not who he was, an open receiver is going to catch a football.
Yeah.
You're absolutely so he's a guy that the defenses still have to consider and take seriously when he's out there. Just his mere presence could help Naaman Roosevelt and Karen Moore and Katie Cannon and all these guys, and just really open up a world of possibilities that maybe wasn't going to be there at the start of the season. And so maybe all of a sudden there could be something more than just William Powell running the football on offense.
I love you bringing up KD Cannon, just because that is by far the best name in the CFL, bar none. And I'm glad we get to talk about him this season. It's impossible
to
escape
right now because Rob Vanstone isn't in love with him, so he's already written a piece about how he could explode this year. So
no, that's true, because again, nothing like falling in love with a guy during the first week of training camp. Because
he did join the team last year and showed a few signs at times. So he's not quite new guy with cool name. Like, he's actually been around a little bit. So
true. No, I do. Because I do remember us talking about him on the podcast, and then me keeping an eye out for him in the following weeks. But it's just that's how football season is back. Is CFL Twitter and CFL scribes are all writing about. This guy looks fantastic. He looks awesome. And 80% of them are going to be possibly working at your local car dealership within the next couple of weeks.
And some of them do. But there are times where they're right. And I can talk about the 2013 training camp. We were up in Saskatoon. I remember quite a number of conversations between myself and my coworker at the time, Jamie and I, about how good Tosh Smith looked, and I was like, he's going to have a big year, and sure enough, he did. So
that's true.
There are those moments where you actually are, where we are right sometimes, and then you just kind of hold on to it forever in hopes in repeating such greatness, and then never really. Though we were all pretty keen on Naaman Roosevelt before in 15, before Corey Chamberlain didn't play him until. For no reason. We didn't really know. And then he got in the lineup, and then all of a sudden he started to play well. Wow, what a surprise that was, right?
It's true. But see, for that to have happened, I was famous for not watching practice and just bullshitting with everybody around there. So I would have had to actually watch practice. So, that's why maybe I don't expect anything to happen, because I was just copied. I literally just copied what you and Jamie were talking about.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you did it for like 2 weeks a year. It wasn't like your full-time gig, so I get it.
True. Lots of scrum working. I used to get texts from my buddies whenever I'd scrum.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.